All right, we're going live. We're here. We're live. Hello. We'll let people trickle in,
Trickle in, guys.
trickle on in, and then we'll get going on the podcast. I think we should talk about while people are getting here what the travel situation has been like for Chris and Zach and wherever Dane is somewhere. What's the living situation like? What are you guys doing?
Travel was fine other than having to wait to get a rental car because they were literally like getting them, cleaning them, and shipping them back out. That wasn't real fun.
Funny thing about that, Chris, is I dropped off a rental car at the same place where you picked one up today, and the lot was so full that I couldn't find a spot to return it. You just timed it up poorly.
Yep. Wish that was the case for me. I mean, I rolled in expecting my white Kia Forte that it said I had reserved at 10 a.m. and there were no white Kia Fortes on the lot. So, but no, I mean, we're staying in a Marriott property that looks like little houses, and we've got 2 bedrooms and a little center room, so we each have our own place. It's solid. It works.
And if you're wondering, Dane did get the pull-out couch.
Low man on a totem pole. It's only right.
That's fucked up. Oh.
Good show. All right, well, that won't make the podcast, but this is live, so way to go, Zach. First one. Loose. I'm just throwing this to the message board. Zach, why are you swearing? Did they have you stressed out right now? Is this living situation? So for people who are the 69 of you who are here currently, which is the real number, nice.
Oh, I have a story about that.
No, you don't.
No. Never mind. I was going to ask to explain the living situation with you guys.
You know, about burger pie, Chris.
I know what you were going to talk about. Some things are better left unsaid.
Yeah, that's probably not.
You got scolded by not 1 but 2 employees. Like, learn your lesson.
Chris, has traveling with Dane and Zach made you realize how good of a companion I am?
We're not that bad.
No, I don't like traveling with any of you. I mean, let's be honest.
What?
I zone out most of the time. I'm in the car with most of you, or it's story time. There's not a whole lot of in between.
He does.
The Jacksonville story time. We've been getting a lot of that. I love it.
A lot of Chris. Oh, Chris, talking about, when I grew up, this was this, and this was this. Yeah, I worked at this record store. Yeah. All right, let's get going on the pod. All right, 3, 2, 1. Oh, good. Make noise right before the count-in. That's good. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to On the Bench. I am your host, Brendan Sinone, joined by Chris Nee, Zach Blostein, and somewhere chilling, Dane Draper. Hello, gentlemen. You're all in the same hotel room. Is that weird?
No, it's a very large room. We're fine. We're grown people.
We're good.
Where's Dane sleeping?
On the pull-out couch.
All right, that's what happens when you're the intern. All right, so Chris, Zach, and Dane all made it to Jacksonville to cover FSU's 2-day camp at UNF. So they went to North Florida for a couple days in Jacksonville. And yeah, kind of well, Chris, how would you describe it? It's not like a team building. It's just to kind of make guys uncomfortable and to throw a little curveball in camp?
It's both. It's a getaway. It's to have kind of a run through. You're going to have 4 or 5 road games this year where you got to get on the bus, leave everything, go do this. It gets everybody away from their girlfriends and everything at home that concerns them. Other than their cell phones are pretty disconnected. It forces guys to share rooms, therefore a little more connecting there. They do some team organized activities. There's good things about that for it. But yeah, the practice setting is very different. It's one field, no indoor. It's not a particularly great field in the sense of just not having all the accommodations and commodities you're looking for with a field. It makes you uncomfortable. It's also hot and humid. It's the natural Jacksonville summer era that we're so used to. Last year was truthfully hotter than today because there were some clouds in the sky today, but it was still plenty humid. So I think they were happy about getting that. So
you're halfway through. You got one day tomorrow. You guys are also taking a tour, talking to some different high school recruits. You got Rod Kearney and the IHOP backplate, which is pretty cool today. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. A lot of recruiting developments, including one commitment today, one last week that we talked about kind of on the feed and on our YouTube feed and podcast feed, but we haven't talked to Chris about it. Hopefully there's no angry parents that are watching this time. So we'll get to all that, but let's talk a little bit about camp the last few days. We'll talk about what today in Jacksonville was like and get your thoughts on that. But I want to start off with yesterday. Well, two things. First off, there was some news. Of course, I was not around. I was absent in Atlanta for the Red Hot Chili Pepper concert. Thanks for carrying the water there for me, fellas. I'm glad I left on a day where there was totally nothing going on. But the news was, according to Mike Norvell and a statement from Caden Lyles, is that the transfer center was lost for the season with a injury that was sustained in practice. They didn't specify what the injury was. We believe it to be a leg injury, knee injury. So yeah, that's to me a pretty big blow for Florida State's depth on the offensive line. We've talked about how much the depth has been improved with the additions of transfers like Caden Lyles. To lose him before the season even gets started, Chris, that's a toughie.
Yeah, it's disappointing for the young man. I didn't think he was going to win the job. I truthfully thought Maurice Smith was going to, based on observing both in practices. But it's a great thing to have a very capable backup. No matter who ended up winning that job, you felt much better about the 1-2 punch than you did a season ago. Now that is gone. That no longer exists. The options are obviously younger guys. For example, with Thomas Schrader, who missed all of last year with injury, or the situation last year where your third center was Darius Washington, who is sort of a break glass in case of emergency guy at the position. So you feel like you're kind of back in that boat. It's disappointing because you felt like they had, to some degree, remedied that position. To Caden Lyles' credit, him coming into the program massively helped Maurice Smith take a step forward. He did get bigger. He worked very hard at it. He was very determined not to lose his job. I think that was a good thing for Maurice. The other thing is Caden Lyles is a good dude. Like, he's still around the team. He wants to go through stuff with the team. He wants to be part of the team. I think it speaks to his character, and it's good to see. It's disappointing. He's been beat to hell in his college career. It's not his first injury. Yeah, it just stinks for the young man because I think he was hoping to have kind of a final go-around where he didn't have to deal with such a thing.
I think there's potential. One thing to clarify, he's a 6-year senior, but with initial red shirt when he was a freshman, and then the COVID year in 2020 not counting against eligibility. Like, I think there's a chance that Florida State could apply for a medical waiver, whether that's something that both parties want to explore. Yeah, I'm not sure yet, but I do think that at least does exist.
Mike Norvell was asked about that on yesterday, and he left it open-ended. He said that they'll explore all possibilities.
Yeah, and they didn't want to get into it. So, yeah, that's a good way to put it. People are going to ask about just the offensive line depth at center. There's some things and limitations what we can say about depth charts or availability at certain spots. I do think it's fair, like for us to at least have opinions and express opinions. The only thing I'll say on that is that I do have my concerns about the position. Kind of what Chris alluded to. You thought you remedied some of the depth, and to me, Caden Lyles was brought in to start, or worst case scenario, be an insurance policy to Maurice Smith. That safety net has been removed, and so the margin for error at a pretty important position, one that literally touches the ball every single play, is marginalized a little bit. So that's going to be something to follow throughout camp and the season. And if you're FSU, you really have to have keep your fingers crossed that you can keep Maurice Smith healthy all year, and if not, that the depth is solid behind him, that you can either develop someone like a Darius Washington or a Thomas Schrader, some of the other pieces they've looked at as well.
Yeah, they've run 6-7 guys out there at center, giving them chances to snap, varying degrees of success. I mentioned Schrader, I mentioned Washington. I think those are the main two. I've been surprised we've not seen more Bryson Estes at that position. He's been good at guard, done a very good job working at guard in the preseason, so I think that's some of it. But he is a guy who we know who has done it in the past. So it would be interesting to me if they start maybe a guy like him or a guy like Antavius Woody, potentially giving them an opportunity and see what it is, just because you kind of got to figure it out. It's offensive line guys get banged up. Depth can quickly disappear out of position. Center is obviously a little bit more unique than any other position on the O-line because you have to be a capable snapper to execute the position.
I remember Zach and I went to Lee County last year, and Quayshawn Sapp was snapping as well. He's another freshman that was trying to get cross-trained at that even when he was in high school. Dylan Gibbons, I can edit this out, but I thought he was mentioned by Coach Norvell, right, Chris?
Yeah, Gibbons has done some. We've seen Sapp do it. I believe Zane Herring's had an opportunity. David Stick was a walk-on who's done it. Schrader, Washington, Lyles, Smith. Those are the guys offhand I can think of that I've seen take a snap at some point this preseason.
It's amazing. We enter camp talking about the depth being the storyline, how different the offensive line looks, and it still does. You're able to absorb like this kind of injury better than you would have been a year ago, but that shows why you stockpile the offensive line position and why FSU allocated the scholarships that it did into that room. 19 scholarships, 10 additions in this offseason alone, 4 of them transfers. One of them's down already for the season, so not a great start to that. Zach, do you want to talk about the center position, or do you want to talk about J Trav? I'll give you the opportunity to pick one or the other here.
J Trav, that sounds way more interesting and fun.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about Jordan Travis. Apparently, I left for a day, and he decided to just light it up. So there you go.
Never come back to a practice, please, ever again. That was the most fun practice I've ever covered at Florida State. That was awesome. I mean, Chris and I and Dane were on the sidelines, like literally, like Chris can mention, like he was giddy at like what he was watching. I mean, it was beautiful. Like J Trav was executing that offense to pure perfection. Every one of his throws was crisp. It was on target. It was delivered at the right time. He was making the right decisions in the pocket. He was making the right reads. I mean, and a lot of people are saying, oh, that must have been the defense just slacking and not performing well. I don't really think so. Yes, there were certain plays where a DB got beat, but it was more so the fact that a receiver would get, a sliver of an opportunity to be open, not even like wide open, just like, enough to get the ball in there. And J Trav would deliver a perfect ball. There were two instances of that. I think the one was to Micah Pittman, the other to Keyshawn Helton. They were perfectly placed at the goal line, and the two receivers came down with it. It was awesome to watch. And I mean, those last couple, I mean, there were drives that just everything seemed to function for J Trav in that offense, and it was really fun to watch. And I think that's not to the extent of what we saw. Was it yesterday or the day before? But the offenses look really good under J Trav's guidance since I mean, really throughout the whole fall camp. But
yeah, it's been consistent.
That day was incredible to watch.
So it was Tuesday that he had a really good day, and Tuesday to me was like the first Friday of camp. Those are days where FSU looks optimal. They look as good as they can be offensively. I feel like they have a good first team defense that gives me confidence in what they are capable of being as a football team. But to be that, you got to stack days on top of each other. That is what FSU is now working towards. That's the next stage of what they're trying to beat. But Tuesday, J-Trap, it was fun. I mean,
Wednesday,
he came out,
wasn't it? It was Wednesday.
No.
I was there Tuesday, and then
Wednesday.
I left.
It was Wednesday. I'm sorry.
I know the days are getting confused with going to camp and whatnot. I know.
But he hit throw after throw. He breadbasket throw to Micah Pittman down the sideline early. He missed one long to Pittman towards the pylon on the left side. But, I mean, it's a really nice throw on the fingertips of Pittman. Pittman made a hell of an effort. It's super close to being that play that happened. And that's about one of the only times the ball hit the turf on the day when J Trav was leading the offense. It was enjoyable. There was a palpable buzz in the air late in that practice with what he did when they went after it. And they got going. They got in rhythm, and they were hitting shots, and they were hitting plays. Guys were winning 50-50 balls, something we haven't seen around these parts in a long time with any kind of frequency. But Malik McClain, I believe it was, took one away from Renardo Green. Johnny Wilson takes one off the fingertips of A.Z. Thomas. That kind of ended the practice. Mike Norvell enjoyed that one a good bit, really good. And today, it slowed down to some degree. It was a back-and-forth kind of practice, but there were still moments where there were really nice shot plays. And they weren't only from Jordan Travis. There was Tate hit some. AJ Duffy had one. Jordan had some of his own. Jordan put a ball to Johnny Wilson in the corner today in the end zone where Johnny Wilson sticks a foot down. It's a touchdown. That play is pretty much not one you can defend when it's executed perfectly, and they nailed it, and Mike Norvell loved it. And there's moments like that where it's like, man, they are capable of being pretty damn good offensively, because I do think they're going to be able to run the ball at a high clip, but if they can throw it with any kind of frequency and high efficiency, you feel pretty good about what they can be. But again, they have to stack that stuff constantly. It has to be a regular thing. The receivers have to catch it consistently. I would say the receivers have done a better job as camp has progressed of securing the ball effectively, consistently as a whole group. That's a good thing. The other thing is there's a lot of receivers that we're seeing better things from. Tron had a decent day today. Him and I believe it was Tate. It might have been Jordan. I can't recall off the top of my head, but it's in a practice story that I wrote today. They had about 3 in a row at one point where they were just connecting. He's done some stuff. Malik McClain's been really good in camp. Keyshawn is kind of the old man of the group, but he's had some really good moments. Pokey Wilson's been pretty consistent. Johnny Wilson's really come on. He's done some things, and he's obviously a different kind of dude because of the way God created him. He's pretty lucky in that regard. He's starting to use those tools, and it makes FSU look like a better football team.
Chris, can you confirm that you were giddy over the J-Trav performance on Tuesday? Is that a fair
Oh,
description?
I was excited. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I like good football, and well, we haven't had a lot around here in recent years, so I'm down for it being good. I just need to see it consistently before I get to the point where I'm moving off that number for the win total.
Byers-Sonone, FSU scores. I'm going to set the line. Byers-Sonone. I don't know if it's going to work this way. Let's just do it anyways. Byers-Sonone, over under 2.5 games, FSU scores above 40 points this season. Mind you, they only scored over 40 points once last season. That was 59 against UMass.
Yeah, I think they're far more capable of it. They've got some guys in the receiving core who are better. Micah Pittman can run routes. He can get open. Johnny Wilson's a guy who's a red zone threat, but he's also becoming a threat in between the 20s. Malik McClain, I feel like, is starting to take a next step. I feel a lot better about what their passing game is capable of being versus what it was last year. Last year, they were kind of, in the dead zone with options. So
Jonah Walden asks, bye. All right. Jonah, that was a long way to go to bye. I forgot that I did Byers-Sonone, to be totally honest. Jonah Walden asks, what was more surprising on Wednesday's J-Trap performance or the wide receivers performance? Zach, I'll throw that to you. Not you, Chris. Sorry.
I mean, if you're looking at the entire camp, right? Like J-Trap performing well. I mean, Mike Norvell even said this after the practice. He doesn't think that J-Trap's had a bad day of camp yet. And he's willing to admit when guys are not performing to their level. So I'd go with the receivers. I mean, there's been some inconsistency with drops and some laps in route running, but that day, like, everything seemed to click. And they were catching everything. And those were contested catches. Those weren't easy catches. I mean, like, a lot of them were thrown really low because that was the only spot that was really, open to throw. There were defenders draped on either side of those guys. I think it was Micah Pittman and Keyshawn Helton, like I mentioned earlier. But those two guys did a great job of hauling it in. And we've seen Johnny Wilson improve in that, in not dropping the ball. Obviously, we've noted that still happens to an extent. There is still inconsistency. I'm having a hard time pronouncing that word today. But there is still to Johnny Wilson's game. That's something he needs to get cleaned up a little bit more. But man, if he can consistently catch the ball, it's going to be really scary for opposing defenses. He's a mismatch nightmare, a guy that can really help them in the red zone, and we've seen it through camp. Like, he can really change this offense.
And Deuce Span's not a wild card.
Yep.
Oh, you're jumping ahead.
I mean, he's got work to do. He's not the best route runner in the world. He's still fairly new to that position in many ways, but he has some elite level speed, and he is a guy who can stretch the field, and he can certainly get behind the defense. I think you can scheme him open here and there and give yourself some opportunities to use him as a scoreboard wider. So I think there is that exists too. That group, the receiver group, I don't want to make it sound like they've gone from an F to an A. They haven't. But they've gotten a lot better, and they do have a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things. And some of the guys that they already had have taken a bit of a step forward, namely a guy like Malik McClain. So I do feel a little bit better about where they're at. And I think J-Trap's also progressed as a passer.
All right, so Chris jumped ahead. I'm working on a story that I do every year. Basically, it's X factors and wild cards, guys with different types of upside and basically, I'll just find it this way. These are players who, with a reasonable jump forward, progressing in a reasonable manner, could change the complexion of their position group. But if they stay stagnant or even regress, that could mean another losing season for Florida State. So I'm putting together a list of those 10 guys based on what we've heard from camp, what we've observed, just looking at priorities, position groups, that kind of stuff. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on players who fit that criteria. I already have put my list together, but I'm very willing to make changes now before we get there. So before I publish it. So let's start off with you, Chris. You put in Deuce Spann as a wild card. Give me two others who kind of fit that bill.
I don't want to use a running back. I feel like that room's pretty respected, but Rodney Hill kind of feels that way to me. That's a freshman who I think has a real shot. He's a versatile kid. He's done a good job of getting himself in not getting in better shape. He's gotten bigger, and he's kept the speed and can do a lot of different things. So he's a guy I really like. I think Josh Farmer's another one. Josh Farmer's going to be in that rotation at defensive tackle, and that can wreak some havoc. He's not to the consistency of those top three guys at defensive tackle, or even a guy like Jarrett Jackson, but he has his moments. He can be a bit of a mauler and a guy that just mashes things in the middle. So if I had to pick two, they're probably them. If you're trying to pick somebody further down the roster, less thought of, or a guy that we've kind of discarded, Brendan Gant, maybe, which I feel really weird saying, but he's figured out a little bit of a niche at the linebacker spot. He's not going to play snaps comparable to Lundy or Deloach or Bethune, but I think there's a role for him, and they've kind of figured that out, and he's figured out that he fits that role. That's always good when there's some symmetry with both sides of the ball.
So I've also another cheap article that I'm working on is breakout candidates, and I think to me Farmer's someone I thought of as a breakout candidate, and Brendan Gant as well. I love Rodney Hill as a potential X factor or wild card because he's someone that we liked what we saw in the spring, right? But we weren't entirely sure if he was someone who would be able to contribute this season as a true freshman. At the very least, I think you have to consider using him on special teams. Not even saying in the return game, that's probably on the table, but in coverage units, just finding ways to get him on the field and to kind of get his feet wet a little bit, because I think he's someone that you're going to probably have to rely on and want to rely on, I should say, in the next couple of years. There's some juice there to his game. Zach, I'll throw it to you now. 3 different X factors, and tell Dane to pay attention because I'm going to bring him in for one X factor wild card player.
Dane, get in here. Sorry, he's not in the room right now. He's in his separate room. Yeah, I'm sticking at the running back position, but I'm going Lawrence Toafili. I think if LT gets back to the level he was at around the Clemson game before the injury, I think if he gets back to that level, he could really add a nice dynamic to the running back room. I think he's a guy that has that break open speed. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's one of the best in that room at doing that specifically. And I think he could be a guy that if he's on his game, and to note, today he looked really good. This is one of his best practices of the entire camp. Norvell mentioned it in his press conference. I think Chris was the one that asked that question actually. That he's really turned it on. So he's a guy for me. Next, I'm going Josh Farmer. I actually agree with that. That's one of the first names that came to my mind. Dane Draper, actually, to my right, he was watching the O-line, D-line drills today, and Farmer was a guy that stood out to him. He's a guy that has seemed really disruptive on the interior throughout camp, and I think providing that depth to the guys like Fabo and Rob Coop, I think could really help FSU, to get those guys off the field, get some rest, so they're not having to play, the entire game. And then lastly, I'm going Biscuit. Marcus and Douglas, right? I think FSU needs to find playmakers within that tight end room. A lot of different guys with a lot of different skill sets. I wouldn't say there's a star in that room, right? Cam McDonald's obviously tight end 1, but besides him, there's a lot of different options they can go with. I think Marcus and Douglas provides the best ability for FSU to make plays down the field with the tight end this season. He's trimmed down his weight. He's had some really nice moments in camp. I think. Don't
fight through it. Clear your throat. Clear it. Go. Just do it.
Let's go. That was manly. So I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, he had a really nice catch over the middle. We noted it in our observations. And he's had several of those moments. So I think if he can turn it on and become a playmaker for them this season, that would really help the tight end room, which I think we all kind of graded pretty low, confidence level wise on how much they're going to help this team. Because, there's just a lot of unknowns, right? There's a lot of guys that are either young, like a Brian Courtney, or guys that have been injured, or walk-ons. There's just a lot of, factors in that room. And I think finding a guy like Marcus and Douglas, who's a big body that can move. He's a former basketball player, so he has that aspect to his game. So he's a guy that's really interesting to me. I'll bring Dane in now. Dane, do you have an X factor that you would like to note on?
Well, I just jotted down a few guys. I mean, Zach mentioned him, but honestly, I think Josh Farmer is like my favorite guy. He's one of my favorite guys to watch on the defensive line. His athleticism is definitely underrated, and I think he's got the best, maybe the best get off of any of the interior guys on the team. Maybe.
All right, I like it,
especially for a younger guy. Yeah, he's got some juice, and he looks older than he is. Like he doesn't need to put on any extra weight, and he's got all the burst you need. So yeah, he's my main guy, and I think Byron Turner is someone you haven't mentioned.
Okay.
That he looks ready to play, I think, and I think he could contribute this year when he's not someone that's being talked about enough. Maybe.
I like that. I think Chris and I are both. Good job, Dane.
And Derek McClendon is.
All right, no, get him out. Get him out. That's too much Dane.
Underrated athletic.
Get out of here.
Fame's getting to his head.
So Byron Turner is an interesting one. To me, Byron Turner is like the line of DNs they intend to use versus DNs that are for the future. And he's either going to be right above or right below that line. I'm not sure quite
he's the
where
line
it is
of
yet.
demarcation because DNs, DE.
You need help.
You worked really hard at that one with the dad joke. You can't make dad jokes, though, before you have kids. Just for the record, I want you to know that.
I'm going to go let my wife know that I need to make a kid right now so that we can make dad jokes.
Get after it. But, Turner kind of fills that spot for me. Like, I feel like Patrick Payton is the fourth man up at that position. Byron Turner's had moments where you see he's got a good get off on the line, can duck that shoulder, get around the edge, does a good job finishing plays. He definitely has some stuff to him. But as Mike Norvell noted in the last week or so, he essentially is in year one of doing this stuff because he missed this portion of last year because of an injury that required surgery. So, he is playing a little bit of catch up, but there's definitely something there with Byron Turner.
I think Chris and I are jockeying for who gets dibs on Byron Turner. I think we both like him a good deal and like what he provides. Apparently Dane does as well. So a quick plug. I think we will be doing our annual Knowles 24/7 draft with team box checkers for Chris versus team landing stickers myself. We have a new commissioner. Josh Newberg has gone elsewhere, and we will have Trey Rowland as our new commissioner to conduct it later. I was going to say next week. Then we're recording it on Sunday. Hopefully we'll have it out either Sunday evening, Monday morning for you guys. I think it'll be fun with Trey. Running point on that, and then we'll have some guest analysts as well to kind of help figure out who's winning the team draft. Let's see. Sam Wells in the chat asks, who is a breakout offensive line candidate? I will start the bidding with Bryson Estes. Chris mentioned him earlier. That's my guy. You're nodding your head, Chris. Is that who you're going to have?
I think he's definitely one that's well worth mentioning. I mean, Bless Harris kind of falls in that category. I'll admit that I thought Bless Harris would be a swing lineman for them, like a 6th or 7th man up. At this point, I expect Bless Harris to start at a very important position at right tackle more than likely. So, Bless has done a phenomenal job. We spoke to Bless today. I thought he was really good. Mike Norvell, I asked him about Bless Harris today as well. Thought he had a very good comment on the young man. But Bless has surprised me. I thought it was going to take him a little bit more time to get to where he is at now. And good for him and good for FSU.
It might be good content to revisit. We would have to – Josh was the one who was helping us make the list when we ranked the expected impact of transfers. And I think we all had Bless Harris pretty low near the bottom, if not at the bottom totally. And
I thought the FCS to FBS jump for him would be a bit more of a task than it's been.
And he wasn't – we watched multiple games. He wasn't great at the FCS level as well, but the coaching he's taken to, and he's been responsive to everything. He's in good shape. And we miscalculated a little bit. He'll be someone who helps out this year for sure. If not, vies to start for Florida State. So I like that as a bid for a breakout candidate. I'm on Bryson Estes. I think he's probably a year away from being someone who legitimately breaks out. We'll see if he has to end up being forced into action, but we've seen enough things in the preseason for me to say, if that happens, he can hold his own to an extent. Why are you making that face, Chris? What happened?
The comment.
The comment in the chat of any tips on posture.
Oh, I wish I had
the king of posture.
Oh my God.
It's all Carter Carroll's fault. He's the one that inspired all that from the Democrat. That man just has it naturally. I wish I did.
It really bums me out that Chris has the best posture of our staff. It's
he's
ridiculous.
The most healthy.
He is the most healthy. As Caressa Nee would say, just because Chris never goes to the doctor doesn't make him the most healthy. He just doesn't get diagnosed with anything.
He's running around with like tons of diseases.
All right, let's. I think that's everything on team stuff now. I think we can transition to recruiting. Anything else you guys want to get to?
No, I mean they have their second scrimmage on Saturday. One more practice here in Jacksonville on Friday. I think the second scrimmage is super important for them to kind of know who and what they are. Norvell talked earlier in the week about this kind of being a week to prove their identity. They're pushing them. They're trying to test them. They're going to see how they handle some obstacles and some things that have popped up on them that were unexpected that are, going to test their will and who's willing to step up and be something more versus who's going to whittle in the moment.
So they also had a talent show yesterday.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, so apparently one team was impersonating coaches. That was apparently really funny, according to Bless Harris. Jamie Robinson sang NBA Youngboy song and basically did it during the press conference too. He gave us like a little glimpse into it. So it was pretty funny. So
can Jamie sing?
Yeah, he did during the press conference.
No, but can he? Like, has he got some chops? Like, could he?
All
right.
I don't know. I'm not one to judge, but yeah. So they're doing team bonding stuff. I think that's a huge portion of this trip. Like you guys were mentioning earlier, like, is it team bonding? Yeah, I think it is. Like, they're really not really around their phones that much. I think it's a lot of team activities. Norvell said they have a bunch of stuff planned today to kind of promote that. So that's a good thing that's coming out of this trip as well.
Buyer Sonone, do you want to hear me sing anything from the Chili Pepper concert last night? I'll let the users. If we get 3 buys on this, I'm singing it.
Please, guys, save us.
No, there's 2 Sonones already, but if we get 3 buys, it's happening in the next minute here. So let's see if these people want to speak. All right, let's get to recruiting. There's a handful of things to go over, including your roundabouts and whereabouts in Jacksonville. But first, let's get to the commitment news from today. And that was that 3-star defensive line prospect from Savannah, Tavian Gadsden, commits to the Noles. He's ranked 683rd nationally. He's a number 79 defensive lineman in the country. 24/7 is higher on him than the industry. I think his composite grade is like an 87, but 24/7 has him as an 88, so the high end for sure with Tavian Gadsden. Zach, you were able to catch up with him. You had an exclusive interview ready to go. We kind of had an idea this was coming, I guess, for a day or so, if not longer. So what did Tavian tell you about the commitment, and why did he pick Florida State over some SEC schools?
Yeah, so Tavian visited Florida State officially back in June. He was actually at the elite camp as well in early June. So he was there. He was at FSU twice. He went to Tennessee and Kentucky unofficially in June as well. And then he went back to Tennessee.
Sorry, muting Zach real quick. We had people 3 buys. Sorry, Zach. I just got to sing it. Standing in line to see the show tonight, and there's a light on. Heavy glow.
So now this is why people cancel.
Dane's giving a thumbs down.
Dane, come over here.
Dane, come over here.
Dane, sing something for the Chili Peppers, please.
I'm not wearing the shirt, Brennan.
Okay, you're not wearing a shirt in Zach's hotel room. Okay, enough with Dane. Move him on. Zach, continue it. Bye, Dane.
All right, so Tennessee unofficial visit at the end of July for Tavian. At that time, like, I'll be candid, like, this wasn't always a sure thing. Like, people, I put in a crystal ball after his June official. I think he gave FSU indication that he was coming. Then things kind of dwindled a little bit with the communication on both sides. This is really important information. Brendan, please pay attention. And over the next month or so, things were uncertain. But over this past week leading up to the commitment, it was pretty clear that Florida State was going to be the choice. I got word, I think, about a week ago, and then got up with Tavian a few days later for that pre-write. But yeah, they beat out mainly Tennessee, Kentucky. He had Georgia. They offered him early on. I don't know whether he was a take. Probably not, I'd assume. But they were in his top 5. So it was a bunch of SEC schools. There was word that he was maybe preferring to play in the SEC. But Odell Higgins, John Papuchis, and others convinced him to come to Florida State. And it's a good get. I think he can be a guy on the interior for them. He puts on some pounds, and I think he can be a force on the interior. And he's a big body guy. He's like 6'4", 280. I'll let Brendan kind of get into the scouting of him.
We'll throw it to Chris, but I want to present it in the context of this question from Jonelle Walden in the comments section. He asked, is Gadsden closer to a Briggs? So it's Dennis Briggs, who's kind of a defensive end, defensive tackle, inside-outside guy for Florida State, or Jarrett Jackson, who's more of a three-tech in body type projection. Chris, I guess how would you view Tavion and the future position at Florida State?
I think right now I'd compare him more to Jackson than Briggs, and more so Jackson when he transferred here from Louisville. Jackson came in kind of heavy at FSU. He's trimmed up, but he's a big body, really athletic kid, can do a lot. The thing with Tavion is he's a kid who's transitioning from being an edge to being an interior guy. He is a bit heavy in that regard, but he's going to be very good. He's just got to kind of figure it all out. He's one of those guys that I think the mindset is still a little stuck on what he used to do, which was edge work. He's going to have to learn to be more of an interior guy. A couple of things I'll add to what Zach talked about. Major reason he's at FSU is people in his circle and people very close to him want him to play for Odell Higgins. They believe, 1, he'll develop him. 2, he's just a good all-around guy. And 3, that he's the kind of coach that's going to make Tavion into what he needs to be. Tavion is a kid who needs development. But if he is developed, the ceiling is very high. The ceiling is very capable, which I think is kind of a fair comparison to what Jarrett Jackson has become in his time at FSU, where he has developed and he really shows flashes. The biggest thing with him, like most, is consistency, doing it over and over, kind of willing himself through it consistently, where he gives you every day, every practice, and you see the same thing over and over, which is what you get from a guy like a Fabian Lovett, who kind of sets the bar at that position. But I like Gadsden a lot. He did have an affinity for the SEC. I don't think he could have committed to Georgia today if he wanted to. I think Georgia was more playing a long game there. I think Georgia just has so many defensive line targets that they're not a rush at that board unless it's a guy that they truly have at the very top of that board. I'm not sure Gadsden falls in that category. That's no knock on the young man. That's just simply Georgia's recruiting at an extremely elite level. They're getting guys that are a little bit more ready-made. Gadsden needs a little work, but I think long-term he's got to be a good one.
So check out a comprehensive scouting report that Coach AB and Kev Little did on the Knowles 24/7 YouTube page earlier today. I did my own little side one on Knowles 24/7 as well, kind of a different look. I think multiple voices on a prospect are always a good thing. But ultimately, I know Bud Elliott said he really likes him as well. He was chimed in on the Knowles 24/7 message board as well today. So with Tavion, I think that's very much like a projection-based guy, which is typically the case for most interior defensive linemen, unless like it's an elite prospect. I think ultimately Tavion, you're projecting that he's going to be able to add weight, and kind of like what Joshua Farmer has done, right? Like you've heard all three of the guys talk about Josh Farmer, kind of similar body type with the frame. Got to see if you can put on weight and if he maintains his athleticism, which is definitely above average at defensive end. If he remains above average moving inside defensive tackle, then you're talking about a high-end athlete as an interior pass rusher. So that's the upside there. It's a good win for Florida State. Continue to really do a nice job in the trenches and the 2023 recruiting cycle. They also last week got a running back commitment from the area that you guys are in now, in the Jacksonville area, I think Fleming Island. And that's Sam Singleton. He's a 4-star prospect. We've talked about it at Knowles 24/7 on the YouTube page. There's been breakdowns. Probably if you're listening to the podcast feed, the X's and Knowles guys talked about him with Zach Blostein. Hi, Zach. A few days ago. Chris, we haven't gotten your thoughts, though, on Sam Singleton. So just real quick, thoughts on Sam. I know you've read our scouting reports. You've listened to the content we've done. I guess what are your thoughts on Sam? Do you differ much in our opinions on him?
I mean, he's a cut-and-go guy with very good top-end speed. He's a track athlete. I think he's going to have to refine his running style a little bit in the sense of in the college game, you can't leave yourself that open like he does, kind of running upright at times. But the speed is there. The speed is a really nice thing. If he consistently catches it with that kind of speed, with what Mike Norvell and the offensive attack does, he can be an asset in a lot of ways.
All right, so let's get into a few more things before we finish up the podcast. Let's see. All right, I got one. I put in a crystal ball for Blake Nicholson a few weeks ago, linebacker from California, high-end priority for Oregon, Florida State. Wisconsin's apparently getting in the mix. Fellas, tell me I'm wrong on that crystal ball, that it wasn't premature.
It wasn't premature. I feel pretty good about where FSU is. FSU did a phenomenal job with the end of July visit. He, his parents, his trainer all came in. He and his parents were there for 4 days. They went and checked out potential places for them to move. FSU's done a great job there. Derek Ray's kind of led the charge. Randy Shannon's done a good job as a position coach. Wisconsin is a recent offer, and Blake seems to be one of those that legitimately likes to give interest to anybody that's interested, in the sense of, if you call me, I'm going to listen. But I don't think it's going to be Wisconsin. And, he gave Zach a recent date here. I'm not even sure if he gets to Wisconsin before he gets to that date, or the time frame at that date.
Yeah, I asked Blake this past week, if there was any update to his decision timeline. He told me, quote, "I'm thinking towards the end of August or early September." So that's probably one game that he could maybe hit if he's trying to do early September. So yeah, I'm with Chris here. I still think I still like FSU. So Brendan, you're still safe for now. But yeah, I'm still confident there.
And for context, it's August 11th. I know most people know what the date is, but I also feel like this summer has flown by particularly faster than other summers. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing Black Summer by the Chili Peppers. I think we're got all out of the system. Do you want me to, Chris? No,
okay. Sir.
Okay, good. Just making sure. But that it could be within the next couple of weeks. So that's coming up. If you can prevent him from visiting anywhere else, that's a really good development. I put in a crystal ball for KJ Kirkland, top 500 prospect nationally, cornerback, safety type 2, Kentucky. Do you guys want to convince me I'm wrong or just move on?
I think you're wrong.
Huh. Well, you're dead to me. All right, moving on. I want to put in a crystal ball for 4-star, probably soon to be 5-star wide receiver Hakeem Williams for Florida State. Tell me that's not crazy.
If Hakeem Williams was deciding today, I would say you're not crazy. But he's going to take visits right before the decision, including one to Texas A&M, who I think is the greatest contender to overthrow FSU, and they concern me the most. And, recruiting is what it is this day and age. I don't feel particularly great that FSU is able to close that with him stepping into College Station right before the decision.
And not just that, he's also, that's going to be 4 games into the season for FSU. If they're going to land Hakeem Williams, they're going to have to win, but that means they're going to have to win early. And I think that's really, they've got some tough tests, right? Like LSU, Louisville, even Boston College. So I don't know. It'll be tough. I think FSU probably has to get him back on campus if they want to land him for one of those games. But man, yeah, Texas A&M is going to be hard to beat, especially since they're getting him to come on an unofficial, on his own dime, to go over there to College Station and watch a game. Brendan, why are you rolling your eyes?
The own dime thing. Texas A&M has missed out on some wide receiver prospects, and that just will turn up the heat on Hakeem Williams, who's still very much so attainable. So bumpy fun ride, I think, for the next month or so. I think there'll be some twists and turns to that. Chris, was that you who just texted? Okay, cool. Hurrying up here. Dane, do you have any crystal balls you want to drop?
Dane? Come in here.
What?
Do you have any crystal balls you want to drop?
No.
He says no.
Show him, though. Make him feel uncomfortable. Dane, you don't have any... Think about the content. You don't have any crystal balls you want to drop? What are you drinking?
My phone.
Okay.
I don't have any crystal balls to drop.
All right, get out of here. He's gotten so much better on camera.
He's a natural.
He is. As long as we're not talking about gorilla genitals. Chris, what have you guys been doing in Jacksonville other than covering practice for the last day or so?
We went and got some barbecue at Bearded Pig this afternoon.
How was it?
It was
Really
good.
Good. How was it compared to what was it, the smoke pit that we went to in Concord? 2 weeks ago.
Lesser than that.
Okay.
The place in Concord was pretty damn good. It was good though. I would definitely go back again. I intend to when me and Chris and the boys come back over here to the beach. We'll probably go. We went to Metro Deli, which is a regular here. I'm sorry, not Metro Diner. I love
Metro Deli.
Metro
Deli is Tallahassee.
Sorry.
Yeah, Metro Deli.
Wrong.
If you want to sponsor on the bench, we're available.
Went to Metro Diner yesterday, which was good to eat. We stopped by the beach because we were out there after going to barbecue joint. Very hazy evening.
Chris, what recruits have you gone to talk to? That's what I was trying to
we went
set
to
you
the
up.
pool. We went to the hot tub.
I
thought he was going to do one restaurant and then go to the next. He just kept
I'm
going.
sorry. You got to be specific with me at this point. I'm tired. We rode in town and saw Rod Kearney yesterday, which was enjoyable. Big fan of IHOP. And then today we tried to go see a certain really good defensive tackle, but that didn't work out for us because of a situation near his school. Yeah, so they didn't have football practice.
Okay.
Zach?
I said R.I.P. Dane.
Standard casualty. No, that's not funny.
I dropped Dane and Zach off at another school while I was talking to Leonard Hamilton, so I'll let Zach talk about that one.
No comment.
Okay.
We will finish up the podcast here. Are we?
Yeah, wrap it up. You know what,
Wrap it
Zach? You stick the landing. This is all on you,
Okay.
buddy.
For
Graduate.
Brandon Sanan, for Christopher Nee, for Zach Blossing, and for Dane Draper, this was On the Bench live. For those on the podcast feed, make sure to tune in next time. We appreciate you guys. Peace out.
Dane, come say goodbye.
Peace out.
He's so awkward.